I didn't turn the water tap off completely, he'd hit me. If I didn't say the right thing, he'd hit me. He held knives to my throat.
Tammy is not breathing. It is December 24th, 1990 in St. Catharines, Ontario. The Christmas tree is still lit. Paramedics work the basement. A 15-year-old, Tammy Lynn Homolka, lies unresponsive. An odor lingers that does not match a simple teen drinking incident. The death will be recorded as aspiration. For years, that label will stand. Then detectives will view videotapes, reopen an old file, and exhume a body on July 20th, 1993. The official story of an accident will not survive. Her name is Carla Leanne Homolka. Publicly, she is a friendly veterinary assistant engaged to a charismatic salesman named Paul Bernardo. Privately, she becomes a willing co-offender. The scope here is tight and unbearable. One dead child inside her own home, followed by two notorious murders, Leslie Mahaffey in June 1991 and Kristen French in April 1992, whose investigations will resurrect Tammy's case. Geography is suburban Ontario, Port Credit, St. Catharines, the Niagara region. The notoriety endures because the violence was recorded, a plea bargain followed, and the first victim was the offender's younger sister. Born May 4th, 1970, in Port Credit, Ontario, Homolka grows up middle class. There is no adjudicated psychiatric diagnosis in the record. The concrete details that matter are access and intent. She works around veterinary anesthetics at the Martindale Animal Clinic. She begins supplying sedatives and coordinating assaults with Bernardo in 1990. Early warning signs are not rumors or cliches. They are choices. Obtaining drugs, discussing a gift for her fiancé, rehearsing control. The path to the crime moves from talk to procurement to the decision to use alcohol and anesthetics on Tammy at home. The turning point is clear. Christmas Eve, 1990. The Homolka family home on 61 Dundonald Street becomes a crime scene that no one will recognize as such for years. Tammy was the younger sister by 5 years. She was popular at school, known for her sense of humor and her close friendships. She trusted Carla completely. That trust became the weapon. On the night of December 24th, Carla and Bernardo plied Tammy with alcohol-laced drinks during what appeared to be a normal holiday celebration. The parents were upstairs, unaware. Tammy became intoxicated, then Carla applied halothane, a veterinary anesthetic she had stolen from work, to a cloth held over her sister's face. The crime sequence is short and decisive. The time frame is the night of December 24th into the early hours of December 25th, 1990. Confirmed family victim count, 1, Tammy Lynn Homolka. Method, alcohol combined with halothane anesthetic, followed by sexual assault while the victim is incapacitated. Pattern, manipulation, and staging. The assault was videotaped. After vomiting and suffering respiratory crisis, Tammy began to choke. The offenders panicked. They dressed her, moved her body from Carla's bedroom to her own room, and attempted CPR while framing the scene as an alcohol accident. Paramedics arrived. Tammy was pronounced dead. The official cause, accidental aspiration of vomit due to alcohol intoxication. In 1991-1992, the violence expands beyond the family to Mahaffey and French, whose murders will later expose the earlier accident. Leslie Mahaffey, 14, was abducted on June 15, 1991, from outside her home in Burlington after being locked out. She was held captive, assaulted, murdered, and her body dismembered and encased in concrete blocks, then dumped in Lake Gibson. Kristen French, 15, was abducted on April 16, 1992, in broad daylight from a church parking lot in St. Catharines. She was held for 3 days, tortured, assaulted, and murdered. Her body was found in a ditch on April 30th, 1992. The videotapes of these crimes would eventually lead investigators back to Tammy. The most disturbing feature remains the identity of the offender, a sister facilitating and participating in the lethal assault of her own sister inside their family home. Evasion initially works. The death is treated as a tragic mishap. The Homolka family grieves. The community mourns a teenage girl lost too soon. Carla and Paul marry in a lavish ceremony on June 29, 1991, 6 months after Tammy's death, in Niagara-on-the-Lake. Guests recall Carla seeming happy, unburdened. The performance is complete. It does not last. The investigative pivot arrives in 1993 as detectives link Bernardo to the Scarborough Rapist series, a string of violent sexual assaults that occurred between 1987 and 1990 in Scarborough, and the abductions of Mahaffey and French. They obtain videotapes and other evidence from the couple's home at 57 Bayview Drive in Port Dalhousie. Those tapes, along with disclosures and new forensic context, force a re-examination of Tammy's death. The tapes show not only the assaults on Mahaffey and French, but also the assault on Tammy. The accident narrative collapses. Tammy's body is exhumed on July 20th, 1993, from Victoria Lawn Cemetery. New examinations are conducted. Chemical traces are found. Arrests follow. Carla is arrested on May 18th, 1993. Bernardo is arrested on February 17th, 1993. The shock is not the handcuffs, it is the footage. The legal outcome is infamous. In 1993, Carla Homolka pleads guilty to 2 counts of manslaughter related to the murders of Mahaffey and French and receives a 12-year sentence. The plea deal is negotiated before prosecutors view the full extent of the videotape evidence. When the tapes are finally seen, public outrage intensifies. The deal becomes known as the deal with the devil. Legal experts and victim advocacy groups condemn the agreement. Tammy's death is not prosecuted as a separate count, but it becomes central to the moral and historical record. The case becomes a permanent reference point in Canadian criminal justice debates about plea bargaining and evidence disclosure. A publication ban prevents media from reporting certain details during Bernardo's trial, further inflaming public anger. Bernardo's trial begins in May 1995. He is convicted of 2 counts of first-degree murder, 2 counts of kidnapping, 2 counts of aggravated sexual assault, and 1 count of committing an indignity to a human body. He receives life in prison with no possibility of parole for 25 years. As of 2025, he remains incarcerated and has been denied parole multiple times. Carla serves her sentence in various federal institutions. She is released on July 4, 2005, after serving her full 12-year term. Books and documentaries follow, some focusing on the plea, others on the recorded evidence and its impact. Stephen Williams writes Invisible Darkness. Multiple television specials dissect the case. Carla relocates, changes her name, remarries, and has children. Sightings are reported. Public fear and anger follow her. Tammy's name remains fixed. She was more than a victim in an infamous case. She was a sister whose trust was weaponized. She was a daughter whose parents had to bury her without knowing the full truth. She was a friend whose classmates carried guilt for not being there that night. The cultural legacy is vast, but the human loss is simple and brutal. A young life ended on a basement floor on Christmas Eve. A girl who wanted to grow up, go to college, fall in love, and live. Instead, she became evidence. A body in a grave, then exhumed. A face on a videotape that prosecutors had to watch and juries had to see. What forged this offense? Coercion, complicity, or both? Carla's defenders claim Bernardo was abusive, controlling, and that she acted under duress. The videotapes tell a different story. They show a willing participant. They show someone who smiled. The debate continues. Whatever the blend, the betrayal is absolute. The lesson is not cinematic, it is procedural. When a death inside a home presents as accident, investigators must test that narrative against evidence without fear of family blame. Toxicology must be thorough. Autopsies must be complete. Questions must be asked, even when they hurt. From a sister's anesthetic and staging, we move to a daughter's phone, texts, towers, and a murder-for-hire plot that tried to masquerade as robbery.
Tell the truth about what you're going to talk to me about. And it's also going to explain to you the penalties for not telling the truth. I don't expect you...
A cell site map glows under fluorescent light. An interrogation camera hums. The date is November 22nd, 2010. The place is York Regional Police Headquarters near Toronto. On November 8, 2010, three armed men forced their way into a Markham home on Helen Avenue. 53-year-old Bitch Harpan was shot dead. Her husband, Han Pan, survived multiple gunshot wounds. Their daughter, Jennifer Pan, told police she had been tied up and helpless while intruders ransacked the house. Phone logs and the survivor's words will dismantle that story. Years later, Canada's highest court will affirm an order for a new trial on the murder count. The case refuses to fade. Jennifer Pan appears to be the model daughter of hard-working immigrants, piano recitals, a tight family schedule, high expectations. In reality, she lives a parallel life stitched together by forged report cards, a fake graduation, and a secret relationship her parents forbid. The scope is specific. One night, one house, two parents targeted, one killed, one maimed. Location, Unionville, Markham, Ontario. The notoriety grows because it is a digital case, texts, calls, and timelines, and because a father survives to testify about what happened in his own home. Born June 17, 1986, in Ontario, Pan grows up inside a system of goals and oversight. Her parents are Vietnamese immigrants who fled their homeland and rebuilt their lives in Canada. They run an auto parts business. They demand excellence. There is no adjudicated mental illness in the appellate record. What the record shows is deception sustained over years. The early signs are not outbursts but fabrications, grades, admissions, day-to-day movements that harden into a double life. She forges report cards starting in high school. She pretends to attend the University of Toronto. She pretends to have a pharmacy degree. She invents a volunteer position at Sick Kids Hospital. She creates an entire false life, complete with fake friends and fake schedules. Her parents believe it all. The relationship with Daniel Wong, her boyfriend, begins in high school and continues despite her parents' disapproval. They view him as a distraction. They forbid the relationship. Jennifer continues it in secret. In the fall of 2010, that double life collapses. Her parents discover more of the lies. They confront her. They present an ultimatum, end the relationship with Wong and submit to their rules, or leave the house and lose all contact with them. Jennifer appears to comply. She does not. The path to the crime is solicitation. She talks with Wong. She reconnects with an old acquaintance, Daniel Chi Kwong Wong, who connects her to Lenford Crawford, David Milvarganum, and Eric Carty, men willing to kill for money. The turning point is a plan to stage a robbery that will look random but end in murder. The planning is meticulous. Jennifer and her co-conspirators exchange more than 100 text messages in the hours leading up to the attack. They discuss timing, entry, points, and who will be home. Jennifer provides a floor plan of the house. She leaves a door unlocked. She coordinates the exact moment the killers will enter. The crime begins and ends on November 8, 2010. Victims, her parents. Confirmed count, 1 killed, 1 wounded. Method, gunmen who bind, separate, and shoot. Pattern, heavy texting and calling in the hours before the attack, with more than 100 messages exchanged leading up to the moment. Evasion, a performance of terror, hands bound with a shoelace loose enough to slip free, an account of helplessness, a claim that the intruders spared only the daughter. The intruders enter around 10 p.m. Han and Bitch are in the home with Jennifer. The attackers bind all three. They separate Han and Bitch from Jennifer. Jennifer is left in the basement. She hears her mother plead in Vietnamese, "Please don't hurt my daughter!" Then gunshots, multiple shots. Bitch is shot in the head and chest. Han is shot multiple times but survives by playing dead. The attackers take a small amount of cash and flee. Jennifer calls 911. Her performance begins. She sobs. She describes masked intruders. She says she is traumatized. The most disturbing element is the inversion of roles. A daughter asking outsiders to shoot her mother point blank and leave her father for dead, then presenting herself as a victim. Investigators test story against physics and data. Cell site records contradict her claimed movements. Timelines do not match. The shoelace binding her hands is suspiciously loose. Her statements contain inconsistencies. Most important, a survivor speaks. When Han Pan can talk, he describes what he saw and heard. He saw Jennifer walking and talking freely with the intruders. He heard her say, "Go upstairs," in a calm voice. His account does not match Jennifer's version. The breakthrough is the convergence, the survivor's testimony plus digital forensics. Detectives examine Jennifer's phone, they map the messages, they trace the calls, they identify the co-conspirators. On November 22nd, 2010, police arrest Jennifer Pan. Interrogations that began with sympathy shift to confrontation as the data close in. The interrogation footage becomes legendary in law enforcement training. Detective William Goetz conducts the interview. Jennifer maintains her story for hours. Goetz applies pressure. He presents contradictions. He tells her they know. Jennifer's story begins to shift. She admits to planning a murder-suicide with Wong. Then she admits to planning a fake home invasion. Finally, elements of the truth emerge. The interrogation is a masterclass in patience and strategy. It is also brutal to watch, a young woman unraveling as her lies collapse. In 2014, a jury convicts Jennifer Pan and co-accused Lenford Crawford and David Mulvaganam of first-degree murder of Bitch Ha Pan and attempted murder of Han Pan. Daniel Wong pleads guilty to conspiracy to commit murder and receives an 18-year sentence. Eric Carty is acquitted. Appellate history follows. Defense argues jury contamination and prejudicial media coverage. In 2023, the Court of Appeal for Ontario orders a new trial. In 2025, the Supreme Court of Canada upholds that order, setting aside the first-degree murder conviction and ordering a new trial on that count. The attempted murder conviction stands. The legal posture changes. The facts inside the house do not. As of 2025, the murder count proceeds to a new trial. Jennifer Pan remains in custody. The case remains a staple of long-form journalism and documentary debate, some of it focused on how media framing can distort or pressure legal processes. For this film, the anchor is unchanged. An agreement by text and call, an open front door, and gunfire that ended a mother's life and injured a father who lived to speak. Han Pan testified at trial. He described his wife as loving, hard-working, and devoted to their daughter. He described his own injuries and recovery. He described seeing Jennifer with the attackers. His testimony was devastating and definitive. What does deception become when it meets opportunity and planning? In this case, it became murder masquerading as random crime. The lies started small, grades, activities, friendships. They grew into an entire false identity. When that identity was threatened, Jennifer chose not to confess, but to kill. The psychology here is chilling. A daughter who could not face disappointing her parents chose instead to eliminate them. A woman who could not live under their rules chose to make sure they could not enforce them. The texts show calculation. The calls show conspiracy. The blood shows consequence. If the last scene relied on outsiders with guns, the next one is 2 against 1, twins with knives and a bathroom that turned into a killing ground.
Good afternoon, Judge.
Good afternoon.
We are here in the matter of the state of Georgia versus Tasmia Janisha Whitehead. Ms. Whitehead is 20 years of age.
The interview room lights never soften. On one screen, a teenage girl picks at her sleeve. On the other, her twin chews her lip and stares at the table. It is January 2010 in Conyers, Georgia. Jamaica Yvonne, Nikki Whitehead, 34, has been found beaten and stabbed in her bathroom. The initial story is that the girls discovered their mother after school. The forensic story is not that. In 2014, both sisters, Jasmia Kanisha Whitehead and Tasmia Janisha Whitehead, plead guilty to voluntary manslaughter and receive 30-year sentences. The rawness of their later on-camera admissions is hard to watch and harder to forget. Publicly, the twins are bright students with honor roll pasts and Girl Scout photos. Privately, home is conflict and custody whiplash. periods with a great-grandmother, then back with their mother, then more turbulence. The scope is one victim in a suburban cul-de-sac, Bridal Ridge Walk, on January 13th, 2010. The case becomes notorious because twin matricide is rare and because televised confession footage later forces viewers to confront what rage looks like after the fact. They are born November 27th, 1993 in Rockdale County, Georgia. The documented stressors are specific: disputes over discipline, accusations of disrespect, prior domestic incidents, and a custody return to their mother that some relatives consider premature. Nikki had struggled. She was a single mother. She worked. She tried. The relationship with her daughters was complicated by years of separation. The twins had lived primarily with their great-grandmother, Della Fraser, for much of their childhood. In 2008, they returned to live with Nikki. The transition was rocky. There were arguments about rules, about school, about respect. Early warning signs are not serial killer tropes. They are escalating fights that family members and school acquaintances recall. Teachers noticed tension. Friends noticed anger. The path to the crime is a morning argument that becomes a beating and stabbing. The turning point is the moment the fight moves from words to weapons. January 13th, 2010 begins like many other mornings. The twins are 16. They are getting ready for school. Nikki is home. An argument erupts. The exact trigger is disputed, but the outcome is not. The fight escalates. The crime is contained. One victim, one bathroom, one morning. Method: blunt force trauma with a household object, repeated stabbing with a kitchen knife. Pattern: after the killing, an attempt to stage normalcy, and a "we found her" narrative. The twins clean themselves, they change clothes, they go to school, they attend classes, they participate. After school, they return home and call 911. They report finding their mother dead. They cry. They perform grief. The most disturbing element is the geometry. Two daughters against one mother in a domestic space that had already been flagged by family for conflict. Evasion is brief. Forensic injuries, time-stamped movements, and inconsistencies in their statements begin to pull at the thread. Rockdale County investigators push past the surface. The injuries on the victim are extensive: blunt force trauma to the head, stab wounds to the lungs, and jugular vein. The wounds suggest a prolonged attack. The injuries on the twins do not fit the discovery after school story. They have defensive wounds. They have cuts consistent with a struggle. Forensic analysis reveals blood spatter patterns inconsistent with their narrative. Cell phone records show they were present in the home when the murder occurred, not at school. Interviews tighten the case. The twins' stories begin to diverge. Small details do not match. The breakthrough is cumulative, then psychological. As contradictions stack up, the twins' accounts begin to crack. Arrests come on May 24th, 2010. Both are charged with murder. Confession footage, recorded later in pieces and aired years afterward, shows what words look like when denial gives way to admission. In the confessions, aired on television years later, the twins describe the attack in chilling detail. They describe hitting their mother with a vase. They describe stabbing her. They describe watching her die. One twin says, "I was seeing the pot that was across from me, and all I saw was the pot." The other describes feeling rage. They describe the aftermath, the cleanup, the drive to school, the return home, the 911 call. The footage is difficult to watch because it shows two young women trying to process what they did and failing. There is no clear remorse in the immediate aftermath. There is confusion, justification, and a strange flatness. A jury never hears the case. In 2014, each twin pleads guilty to voluntary manslaughter and receives a 30-year sentence. The courtroom is quiet. There are no theatrics. The law accepts what it needs to accept to close the file. Voluntary manslaughter becomes a label for an act that left a mother dead and the community stunned. Family members speak. Some support the twins. Some condemn them. Nikki's mother speaks about loss. The twins apologize. The judge sentences them. The cameras turn off. As of 2025, the sisters remain incarcerated in separate Georgia Department of Corrections facilities. They will be eligible for parole consideration in the 2040s. The case returns to television because people try to make sense of it by watching faces. That is not analysis. The analysis is this: Nikki Whitehead, daughter, partner, mother, was a person with a history and plans. She worked at a local business. She tried to reconnect with her daughters. She had dreams for their futures. She wanted them to graduate, to succeed, to thrive. She did not live to see 35. Her name belongs here, said aloud, outside the frame of a headline. She is not just the victim in the twin case. She is Jamaica Yvonne Whitehead. She mattered. She matters still. Do shared genes double conscience or dilute it? Here they amplified violence. 2 against 1 is not just a numbers game. It is a psychological dynamic where shared anger becomes permission, where one twin's rage validates the others, where the act becomes collective and therefore somehow less individually monstrous. That is a lie the mind tells itself. Each blow was a choice. Each stab was a decision. 2 people chose together. 2 people will serve together. From Georgia's twins, we move to East Texas, where a 16-year-old orchestrates a home invasion that kills a mother and 2 sons and leaves a father crawling out of a burning house.
Murders of my mother and 2 brothers.
You pled guilty because you are guilty, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
What did you do that made you part of this murder?
The house is burning. It is March 1st, 2008, outside Alba, Texas. Deputies arrive to find Terry Caffey crawling from a window, shot multiple times, his clothes scorched. Inside, his wife Penny and their sons, Matthew, 13, and Tyler, 8, are dead. The daughter, Erin Michelle Caffey, is missing, but not for long. Within days, investigators will connect the fire to a teenage plan, a boyfriend, and a knife that had no mercy for sleeping children. Erin presents as a youth group pianist in a small town where church nights and 2-lane roads set the rhythm. At home, the conflict is specific, a relationship her parents forbid. The scope is 3 confirmed victims in a single attack. Location, Rains County, Wood County line, East Texas. The notoriety is the scale and the method, gunfire, stabbing, and arson, executed by 2 young men at the direction of a 16-year-old daughter. Born in 1991, Erin grows up in a household built around faith, routine, and school. The Caffey family attends Miracle Faith Baptist Church. They are known in the community. Terry works. Penny homeschools the children. The family is close-knit. The record shows no adjudicated mental illness for Erin. Early warning signs are the ordinary escalations of a teenager at odds with her parents, sneaking out, lies, and boundary testing. Erin meets Charlie Wilkinson, 19, at a church event. They begin dating. Her parents disapprove. The age gap concerns them. Charlie's background concerns them. They forbid the relationship. Erin defies them. The path to homicide is solicitation. She talks with her boyfriend, Charlie Wilkinson, and his friend Charles Wade. The turning point is the agreement to kill not only the parents, but the boys, and to burn the house to erase evidence. Erin wants her family dead so she can be with Charlie without interference. The planning is direct. Erin tells Charlie she wants her family gone. Charlie recruits Wade. They acquire weapons, 2 handguns and swords. They drive to the Caffey home in the early hours of March 1st, 2008. Erin waits in the car. The crime begins after midnight. The attackers enter the home. Terry is shot multiple times. Penny is shot. Matthew and Tyler are stabbed to death in their beds. The house is set on fire using gasoline. The pattern is extermination. Remove every witness, clear the scene with flames, and run. The most disturbing aspect is the targeting of sleeping children. Tyler was 8 years old. He loved video games. He trusted his sister. Matthew was 13. He played baseball. He looked up to his father. Both were killed in their beds, defenseless. Evasion depends on chaos and fire, but fire leaves lines, accelerants, pour patterns, and clocks, and Terry Caffey survives. Texas Rangers and county investigators have a surviving witness. Terry lives to tell how the night sounded. He describes being shot. He describes hearing his wife scream. He describes smelling smoke. He describes crawling to a window. He describes the agony of knowing his sons were inside. Phone records map calls. Investigators trace Erin's movements. They locate her with Charlie. Interviews pull threads until they snap. Within days, arrests follow. Erin is located with her boyfriend and friend. The reaction in custody is adolescent and flat. When asked why, Erin reportedly said she was in love and wanted to be with Charlie. That is the explanation. 3 people dead, a father maimed, a house burned, because a teenager wanted to date someone. The court outcomes are heavy. Erin receives 2 life sentences plus 25 years, eligible for parole far in the future. Charlie Wilkinson is sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Charles Wade receives life without parole. A 4th person, Bobby Johnson, Wade's girlfriend, receives a lighter sentence for her role in helping after the fact. The courtroom scenes are controlled. There is no spectacle, only testimony and photographs that the jury will never forget. Terry Caffey testifies. He describes his family. He describes the attack. He describes his injuries, shot 5 times, including in the face and shoulder. He describes forgiving his daughter. That forgiveness is remarkable and painful. He writes a book, Terror by Night, and speaks publicly about faith and forgiveness. He rebuilds his life. He remarries. She serves her sentence in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. The case anchors TV segments about juvenile culpability and the law of parties, which can hold planners as accountable as triggermen. Texas law allows for such prosecutions. 3 names remain: Penny, Matthew, and Tyler Caffey. Penny was 37. She homeschooled her children with dedication. She sang in the church choir. She loved her family fiercely. Matthew was 13, an athlete and a student. Tyler was 8, full of energy and laughter. They are gone. Their names are spoken at memorials. Their graves are visited. Their father carries their memory every day. Is love a motive or a story we tell ourselves to hide what we want? In this case, love became a weapon against a family. Erin claimed she loved Charlie. What she felt was infatuation, obsession, and a willingness to remove any obstacle to getting what she wanted. That is not love. That is narcissism weaponized. The boys did not deserve to die. Penny did not deserve to die. Terry did not deserve to be shot and burned. But Erin decided their lives were less important than her desires. The psychology is chilling in its simplicity. Idaho is next. A daylight trash pool will carry more weight than any speech. A latex glove sits in an evidence tray. Inside, DNA traces match the wearer. It is Bellevue, Idaho, September 2nd, 2003. Diane and Alan Johnson are shot in their home on Lindbergh Avenue. Their daughter, Sarah Marie Johnson, tells police she woke to find the bodies. Detectives will find a robe and gloves in the household trash that end the story before it begins. Sarah's public face is ordinary. High school, friends, a boyfriend her parents do not approve. In private, she resents the control and the threat that the relationship will end. The scope: 2 victims, 1 morning. Location: a quiet neighborhood in the Wood River Valley, an area known for skiing and outdoor recreation. Notoriety: a forensic case where the trash tells the truth. Born January 24th, 1987, she grows up with structure and rules. The Johnsons are a stable, middle-class family. Alan works at the Hill Feedlot and Agriculture. Diane works at St. Luke's Wood River Medical Center. They are involved in their community. There is no adjudicated mental illness in the record for Sarah. Early warning signs are relational, anger over control, and a forbidden boyfriend. Sarah begins dating Bruno Santos, a man who lives in the family's guest house. He is older. He is an employee. Her parents disapprove. They forbid the relationship. Sarah continues it in secret. The path to crime requires opportunity. A tenant's rifle is accessible. Routine is predictable. The turning point is the choice to attack 2 sleeping parents. On the morning of September 2nd, 2003, Sarah takes a .264 Winchester Magnum rifle belonging to a guest staying in their home. She enters her parents' bedroom. She shoots her mother in the head. She shoots her father in the chest. Both die instantly. The crime happens before dawn. 2 shots, 2 bodies. The method is a high-powered rifle, chosen for its lethality. The pattern is a staged discovery and a story that seeks to place the daughter outside the event. Sarah calls 911. She reports finding her parents shot. She cries. She performs shock and grief. The most disturbing element is the cold precision. A weapon selected, a path walked, a trigger pulled twice. No hesitation, no struggle, just execution. Evasion is short. Biology betrays her. Investigators conduct a trash pull and recover a bathrobe and latex gloves from the household garbage. The bathrobe has a pink fiber and paint chip on it. Forensic testing matches the paint chip to paint on the rifle stock. DNA inside the gloves matches Sarah. The DNA is extracted from skin cells shed inside the gloves. Gunshot residue is found on the bathrobe. The evidence forms a chain. Sarah handled the rifle while wearing the gloves and robe. She disposed of them in the trash. The breakthrough is not cinematic. It is the slow, relentless accumulation of small facts. An arrest follows. Sarah is arrested on September 4th, 2003, just 2 days after the murders. In March 2005, a jury convicts Sarah Marie Johnson of 2 counts of first-degree murder. The sentence is life without the possibility of parole, plus 15 years fixed on each count to run consecutively. The trial includes testimony from Bruno Santos, who denies any romantic relationship with Sarah and cooperates with investigators. Appellate courts uphold the verdict and sentence in 2009 and again in subsequent appeals. The courtroom drama is muted. The most powerful testimony comes from scientists and timelines. Forensic experts testify about the DNA, the paint, the gunshot residue. The evidence is overwhelming. The jury deliberates for less than a day. She remains incarcerated at the Pocatello Women's Correctional Center in Idaho. The case appears in forensic textbooks and lectures as an example of transfer, trace, and trash pull evidence. It is taught to criminal justice students as a demonstration of how small pieces of evidence can build an insurmountable case. 2 people, Diane and Alan Johnson, are dead. Diane was 52, a healthcare worker beloved by her colleagues. Alan was 46, a hard-working man devoted to his family. Their daughter is a sister. She had a younger brother who lost both his parents in a single morning. She will die a prisoner. As of 2025, she continues to serve her sentence with no possibility of parole. When the most damning witness is a garbage bag, the lesson is final. Method beats myth. The myth is that killers are criminal masterminds who outsmart police. The method shows otherwise. A latex glove, a bathrobe, a trash can, that is all it took to convict. Forensic science does not need drama, it needs precision. From a rifle and a robe, we return to Canada, to a bathroom and a wire. 2 sisters think they have staged the perfect accident. A judge will have a different line.
We were able to show that the girls were actually chatting with this particular individual and that he was willing.
A voice crackles on a hidden microphone. 2 teenagers describe how they got their mother drunk, dosed her with codeine, and held her underwater. Mississauga, Ontario, 2003. Their names are sealed because they were minors. The press calls them the bathtub girls. A judge will later say they set out to commit the perfect crime and created the perfect prosecution. In public, they are suburban high schoolers who talk about grades and part-time jobs. In private, money is tight, arguments run long, and the future looks like a trap. The scope is single victim matricide. The method is sedation with alcohol and Tylenol with codeine, followed by drowning and staging. The notoriety grows because the case tests Canada's Youth Criminal Justice Act in a homicide that looks like a textbook accident. They are born in the late 1980s and early 1990s in the Greater Toronto area. The record shows no adjudicated mental illness. The family background includes financial strain and conflict between mother and daughters over rules and control. Early warning signs are signals of planning and entitlement. talk about insurance, procurement of medication, and rehearsed alibis. The path to the crime is not a sudden blow. It is a month-long march of preparation. The sisters discuss options. They research methods. They talk about what will happen after. They imagine collecting insurance money. They fantasize about freedom. The turning point is a night when planning becomes action and the bath becomes a weapon. The crime is methodical, carried out on January 18th, 2003. They invite their mother to have a drink with them, an unusual but not impossible gesture. They mix alcohol and pills. The mother becomes intoxicated, then drowsy. They guide her to the bathtub, claiming she needs a bath. Once she is in the water, they hold her under. The drowning takes time. It is not instant. It requires sustained effort. They clean and stage the bathroom to look like a slip and fall. They arrange the body. They remove evidence. They leave with friends to build an alibi, going to a movie and then to a restaurant. They return home later and discover their mother dead in the tub. They call 911. They cry. They perform grief. The most disturbing element is the laughter later captured on tape when they recount the event to a friend they believe they can trust. The tape captures them giggling, describing the act with pride, talking about how well they executed the plan. Evasion relies on the coroner accepting an accident and the community believing two daughters would not do this. Investigators get a chance. A friend becomes uncomfortable with what he hears. He goes to police. Police wire him. Over the course of a month, he records conversations with the sisters. Over a month, he records detailed admissions. The sisters describe the planning. They describe the execution. They describe the staging. They describe feeling powerful and clever. Toxicology supports the story. High levels of codeine and alcohol are found in the mother's system. Timelines match. The breakthrough is the wire. The audio is clear. The confessions are complete. Arrests follow quietly in August 2003. They are convicted of first-degree murder under youth provisions and receive blended youth-adult sentences totaling 10 years. Under Canadian law at the time, this is the maximum youth sentence for homicide. They serve most of that time in youth and adult custody facilities. Their names remain sealed under the Youth Criminal Justice Act. The case enters film and legal classrooms as a hard example of how youth secrecy collides with public fear. The mother's name is spoken less often than the nickname assigned to her daughters. That is a failure outside the courtroom. She was a woman who worked. She was a mother who tried. She deserved better than to be drowned in her own bathtub by her own children. The cultural impact is significant. The case is featured in documentaries. It is discussed in legal seminars about youth justice. The audio recordings become teaching tools for interrogation and evidence gathering. The judge's words, set out to commit the perfect crime and created the perfect prosecution, become a reference point for how criminals often provide the evidence that convicts them. Were they evil or just young and greedy? The question is not useful. The judge's line is the only one that matters. Planned crime, precise proof. Age does not erase intent. Youth does not erase murder. The law must balance rehabilitation with accountability. In this case, both were served. The sisters were sentenced. The mother is buried. The community remembers. That is all justice can do. From Mississauga, we move to Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, where a 14-year-old calls 911 and tells the truth faster than any detective could. I stabbed my sister. The line is simple and final. Manheim Township, Pennsylvania, February 22nd, 2021. Police arrived to find 19-year-old Helen Miller, who had cerebral palsy and was nonverbal, mortally wounded in her bed at the family home on Clayton Road. Her younger sister, Claire Elena Miller, waits outside in the snow with blood on her hands. Motive will be debated in a courtroom, but the act is not. It is confessed and immediate. Claire looks like a child because she is one. There is no long behavioral record in public files. At sentencing, defense experts describe acute psychiatric symptoms, auditory hallucinations, and disorganized thought near the time of the offense. The scope is one victim. The method is a knife in a bedroom. The notoriety is the age of the offender and the painful reality that the dead was a sister who required care and could not defend herself. Born in 2006, Claire grows up in a family that manages complex caregiving and ordinary school routines. The Miller family is described by neighbors as quiet and private. Helen requires significant care. She uses a wheelchair. She communicates through gestures and sounds. She depends on her family for daily needs. Early warning signs, as presented in court, cluster around the days before the offense rather than years of escalation. Defense attorneys later argue that Claire experienced a psychotic break. The path to the crime is moments. The turning point is walking down a hallway at 1 a.m. with a knife in hand. The crime is over before dawn on February 22nd, 2021. The victim is Helen. Claire enters Helen's bedroom while Helen is sleeping. She uses a kitchen knife to stab her sister multiple times in the neck and torso. Helen cannot fight back. She cannot scream for help. She cannot run. The attack is brief. Helen dies from her injuries. The most disturbing element is the target, a sibling who could not defend herself, who was vulnerable and dependent. Evasion does not exist. The offender calls police and repeats the admission on scene. She is found outside the home, standing in the snow, covered in blood. Officers ask what happened. She tells them, "There is no story. There is no lie. There is only confession." The investigation is short. Officers document the scene and the weapon. The kitchen knife is recovered. Blood evidence is collected. The breakthrough is the 911 call. The call is brief and chilling. Claire's voice is matter of fact. She says she killed her sister. The dispatcher asks her to repeat. She does. Officers are dispatched immediately. The arrest happens at the door. There is no manhunt and no mystery. The only question is how the law will balance mental illness findings with accountability. In 2023, Claire Miller pleads guilty but mentally ill to third-degree murder and receives a sentence of 12.5 to 40 years. The plea comes after extensive psychiatric evaluation. Experts testify that Claire was experiencing symptoms of mental illness at the time of the offense, including possible hallucinations. The courtroom hears testimony about symptoms and risk. The prosecution argues that despite mental illness, Claire understood the wrongfulness of her actions. The defense argues for leniency given her age and psychiatric state. The judge answers with confinement and treatment. The sentence includes provisions for mental health care. There are no sensational quotes, just the formal language of a GBMI plea and a family that must live with two losses, a dead daughter and an imprisoned one. She is incarcerated in a Pennsylvania state facility with mental health conditions built into the order. As of 2025, she remains in custody. Local coverage revisits the case when appellate filings or prison placements change, then goes quiet out of respect for the family. The Miller family has largely stayed out of the public eye. They grieve privately. They do not seek media attention. That is their right. Is a psychotic episode an explanation or only a lens? It explains suffering. It informs sentencing. It provides context. It does not reverse a homicide. It does not bring Helen back. Helen's name should be spoken. She had favorites, foods, songs, people, now remembered in a home that is quieter than it should be. She loved music. She responded to touch. She smiled when she was happy. She was more than a victim. She was a person, a sister, a daughter. She mattered. We leave Pennsylvania and cross the border west to Alberta, where the offender is 12 and the plan is bigger than one victim.
Out in the community one day, that's inevitable. And what kind of person is she going to be? What kind of adult is she going to be? So those are the types of questions I have daily, and especially when there's an annual review.
Police mark out a Medicine Hat subdivision on a map. April 23rd, 2006. Mark and Deborah Richardson and their 8-year-old son Jacob are found dead in their home at 304 Hillcrest Drive. Within days, officers arrest 2 people, a 12-year-old girl named Jasmine Richardson and her 23-year-old boyfriend, Jeremy Steinke. The Youth Criminal Justice Act will limit her punishment. It will not change the count, 3 dead, including a child who loved hockey and video games. Jasmine is a middle schooler in public. Online, she performs an adult persona, trading violent fantasies with an older boyfriend in chat rooms and on forums devoted to goth subculture. The scope is 3 victims in a single night. The method is stabbing. The notoriety is the age of the offender and the statutory cap of her sentence in Canada. Born in 1993, Jasmine lives with a family trying to pull her out of a relationship with a man in his 20s. Mark and Deborah Richardson are concerned. They see Jasmine changing. She dyes her hair. She wears dark clothes. She spends hours online. They discover the relationship with Steinke, who goes by the online name Soul Eater. They are horrified. They forbid the relationship. They confront Jasmine. They threaten to call police if Steinke continues to see their daughter. Early warning signs are the online postings and the defiance against parental rules. Jasmine and Steinke communicate through messages filled with violent imagery. They talk about death. They talk about being together forever. They plan. The path to the crime is a pact. The turning point is opening a door and letting Steinke into the house. On April 23, 2006, Steinke and an accomplice, Jasmine's friend, enter the Richardson home. Jasmine unlocks a basement window. The crime unfolds room by room. Mark is stabbed first. Deborah is stabbed. Then they move to Jacob's room. Jacob is 8 years old. He is sleeping. Steinke stabs him to death. Jacob's injuries are extensive, multiple stab wounds delivered with force. The most disturbing element is the annihilation of a family by its youngest member and an adult outsider. Evasion is limited. A small city sees what it sees. Neighbors report seeing a young couple and a child leaving the area. Jasmine runs away with Steinke. They are found days later in Saskatchewan. Arrests happen quickly. Court proceedings move within youth law constraints. Jasmine is convicted and receives the youth maximum, 10 years, which includes 4 years in a psychiatric facility, 4.5 years under conditional supervision, and time in the community. The sentence reflects Canada's focus on rehabilitation for young offenders. Jeremy Steinke is tried as an adult, convicted of 3 counts of first-degree murder, and sentenced to 3 concurrent life sentences with no possibility of parole for 25 years. The courtroom testimony is graphic. Evidence includes photos of the crime scene. Jasmine testifies. She describes the night. She describes her role. She shows limited remorse initially, but later expresses understanding of the harm caused. She completes the sentence. By 2016, formal supervision ends. The public record recedes by design under the Youth Criminal Justice Act. Jasmine's name is sealed. Her identity is protected. She receives a new identity and attempts to rebuild her life. The community continues to hold its breath when certain anniversaries come. Medicine Hat is a small city. People remember. Mark Richardson was 42, a successful businessman. Deborah Richardson was 48, a devoted mother. Jacob Richardson was 8, a boy who loved life. They are buried. They are mourned. Their names are inscribed on headstones and in hearts. Is a 12-year-old fully capable of adult malice? The law answers cautiously. Neuroscience tells us the adolescent brain is not fully developed, particularly in areas governing impulse control and long-term thinking. Yet Jasmine planned. She unlocked a window. She participated. She fled. The capacity for evil does not wait for adulthood. The dead cannot answer at all. From Canada's prairie to Indonesia's resort belt, a suitcase in a taxi, a hotel camera, and a daughter whose case crosses borders and years.
We certainly didn't want her to continue to be incarcerated, but we're cognizant of the loss here and the facts underlying this case.
A taxi driver smells something wrong. August 12, 2014, at the St. Regis Bali Resort in Nusa Dua, a suitcase sits in the trunk of a cab. Inside is the body of 62-year-old Sheila von Wiesemak, wrapped and stuffed into luggage too small to fully contain her. Her daughter, Heather Mack, and Heather's boyfriend, Tommy Schaefer, are arrested within hours by Indonesian police. Indonesian courts will convict both. Years later, the United States will prosecute Heather again. One body, 2 jurisdictions. One story that does not change with geography. Heather grows up in Chicago with money, music, and media. Publicly, she is a socialite's daughter, the child of a composer, and a woman with inherited wealth. Privately, the relationship with Schaefer is explosive and violent. The scope is one victim. The method is a hotel room beating and a suitcase. The notoriety is the imagery, CCTV footage showing the couple with luggage, a taxi queue, international headlines, and the legal sequel in federal court. The background is not complicated. Heather and Sheila have a tumultuous relationship marked by arguments about money, control, and Heather's relationship with Schaefer. There is documented domestic violence in the relationship between Heather and Schaefer. They travel to Bali together. Sheila joins them, ostensibly to reconcile. There is conflict over money, travel, and Heather's pregnancy. The path to the crime runs through confrontation in a room with soundproofed walls and a door that locks from the inside. The turning point is the first blow. On August 12, 2014, in room 616 of the St. Regis Bali, Sheila is beaten to death. Schaefer uses the metal handle of a fruit bowl. The beating is prolonged and violent. Sheila's injuries include fractures to her skull and face. She dies in the hotel room. Heather and Schaefer then attempt to conceal the body in a suitcase. Indonesian police process a scene that is more logistics than mystery. Hotel staff saw what they saw. Cameras recorded movement, bags, and exits. CCTV footage shows Heather and Schaefer moving luggage. The taxi driver reports the smell and the weight of the suitcase. Police intercept the couple at the hotel. The breakthrough is the suitcase itself. Sheila's body is inside, covered in blood. Arrests are immediate. Both are taken into custody on August 13, 2014. In 2015, an Indonesian court sentences Heather Mack to 10 years in prison and Tommy Schaefer to 18 years for their roles in the killing. The trial is held in Denpasar District Court. Heather testifies that she was abused by Schaefer and feared for her life. The court finds both guilty. Heather gives birth to a daughter, Stella, while in custody. Stella lives in prison with Heather for the first 2 years, then is cared for by relatives. After she serves approximately 7 years, Heather is released for good behavior under Indonesian law in 2021 and deported to the United States. US federal prosecutors bring a conspiracy case, charging her with conspiracy to kill a US national and obstruction of justice. In 2023, she is convicted. In 2025, Heather receives a 26-year federal sentence to run concurrently with any remaining time from Indonesia. The courtroom statements are a blend of apology and accounting. She apologizes to her family. She expresses remorse. They do not change the facts. She now serves a US sentence at a federal facility. As of 2025, she remains incarcerated. Media revisit the case because it feels cinematic, a luxury resort, a suitcase, international drama. It is not. It is a woman in a suitcase and a daughter who will age in prison. It is Sheila von Wiese Mack, a woman who traveled to Bali to see her daughter and died in a hotel room. She was a mother, she was a composer, she had a life and plans. She is buried, she is remembered. Her daughter took that life for reasons that will never fully make sense. If a second jurisdiction punishes you, does it mean the first one missed something? It means the law is layered. It means accountability can cross borders. The killing is not complicated. It is brutal and final. Our final case is the most ethically complex. It involves years of well-documented medical abuse and a homicide committed by proxy.
Sir, please tell us your name.
Gypsy at Park Blanchard.
What do you go by?
Gypsy.
Okay. Gypsy, could you speak up?
A clerk reads a plea. Springfield, Missouri, 2016. Gypsy Rose Blanchard pleads guilty to second-degree murder in the stabbing death of her mother, Claudine Dee Dee Blanchard. For years, Dee Dee had convinced doctors, charities, and neighbors that Gypsy had leukemia, muscular dystrophy, epilepsy, and a host of other conditions. She shaved her daughter's head. She controlled her food, movement, and speech. She subjected her to unnecessary medical procedures. The name for this is Munchausen syndrome by proxy, or more precisely, factitious disorder imposed on another. In June 2015, Gypsy asked her boyfriend, Nicholas Godejohn, to kill her mother. The public image is perfect inspiration porn. A brave, smiling girl in a wheelchair meeting celebrities and charities. Dee Dee and Gypsy become minor local celebrities after Hurricane Katrina. They receive a house from Habitat for Humanity. They attend events. Gypsy is presented as severely disabled and terminally ill. The private reality is a healthy young woman medicated and operated on without medical need. The scope is one victim. The method is a knife in a pink bedroom. The notoriety is the collision between a homicide and a mountain of medical abuse records. Gypsy is born July 27, 1991 in Golden Meadow, Louisiana, and moves with her mother to Missouri after Hurricane Katrina displaces them in 2005. From early on, Dee Dee presents her as terminal or fragile. Records show feeding tubes, medications for conditions she does not have, surgeries that are unnecessary, and lies to physicians about symptoms. Gypsy is confined to a wheelchair despite being able to walk. She is given medications that make her teeth rot. She is kept isolated from peers. She is presented as mentally disabled despite having normal intelligence. Early warning signs are the mothers, not the daughters. Doctors later review records and find inconsistencies. Some physicians questioned Dee Dee's claims, but were manipulated or misled. The path to the crime is an online connection that becomes a fantasy, then a plan. Gypsy meets Nicholas Godejohn on a Christian dating site in 2012. They begin a secret online relationship. They talk about escaping. They talk about killing Dee Dee. The turning point is a message that says what will happen and when. On June 14, 2015, the plan is executed. Nicholas Godejohn enters the house at night while Gypsy waits in the bathroom. He brings a knife. He goes to Dee Dee's bedroom. He stabs her 17 times. Dee Dee dies in her bed. Gypsy and Nicholas leave on a bus. They travel to Wisconsin, where Nicholas lives. They post a cryptic message on Facebook that points police straight to them. "That bitch is dead." The post alarms friends and family. Police conduct a welfare check. They find Dee Dee's body. They find evidence of blood and violence. They trace the Facebook post. They locate Gypsy and Nicholas in Wisconsin within days. The most disturbing element is the impossible paradox. The victim of murder is also the architect of years of abuse. The law must hold both truths. The investigation is ordinary police work, IP addresses and bus tickets, interviews with neighbors who describe the mother-daughter relationship. Medical records are reviewed, doctors come forward, a picture emerges of systematic abuse spanning years. Gypsy's medical records show a pattern of fabricated illnesses, teeth extractions, feeding tube placements, medications for epilepsy and asthma she does not have. The scope of the abuse is staggering. A confession that is blunt and unadorned follows. Gypsy admits to planning the murder. Nicholas admits to carrying it out. Arrests in Wisconsin. The reaction online is a wave of confusion and then a split. Who is the villain? Who is the victim? And can the same person be both? In 2016, Gypsy pleads guilty to second-degree murder and receives a 10-year sentence. The plea comes after her defense presents extensive evidence of abuse. The prosecutor acknowledges the abuse but argues that murder is not justified. The judge accepts the plea. Gypsy is sentenced to serve her time in the Chillicothe Correctional Center in Missouri. Nicholas Godejohn goes to trial in 2018, is convicted of first-degree murder, and receives life without parole. His defense argues he was manipulated by Gypsy, but the jury finds him culpable. In December 2023, Gypsy is paroled after serving approximately 85% of her sentence. She is released on parole, and her case explodes in media coverage. Interviews follow on major networks. Documentaries proliferate. Mommy Dead and Dearest, The Act, and multiple specials. Survivors of medical child abuse see validation. Families of homicide victims see a line crossed that should never be crossed. Does context absolve? It never does. It explains. It informs sentencing. It provides a lens for understanding how a young woman trapped in a nightmare of fabricated illness could come to see murder as the only escape, but it never resurrects the dead. Dee Dee Blanchard's name remains. She was a woman who abused her daughter for years. She was also a human being who was stabbed to death in her bed. Both things are true. So does Gypsy's name. She is a victim. She is a murderer. Both things are true. The story is a warning about systems that fail to question and about the point at which escape becomes murder. It is a warning about medical professionals who accept parental reports without verification. It is a warning about charities that provide help without investigation. It is a warning about the long-term psychological damage inflicted by sustained abuse. As of 2025, Gypsy is living on parole. She has remarried. She has become a public figure, using social media and media appearances to discuss her case and advocate for abuse survivors. She has faced criticism for profiting from her story. She has faced support from those who see her as a victim who fought back the only way she knew how. The debate continues. The complexity remains. They are 10 different doors into the same room. Family is proximity. Proximity is access. Access without empathy becomes opportunity for homicide. Many of these offenders were teenagers. Several had no documented psychiatric history. These cases force us to confront uncomfortable truths. Evil does not always announce itself with warning signs. Sometimes it wears the face of a sister, a daughter, a twin. Sometimes it hides behind youth, behind smiles, behind family photos. Sometimes it calculates, sometimes it explodes, but it always leaves bodies behind. If you found this exploration into these shocking cases compelling, please hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications. Which of these killers do you think was the most disturbing? Share your thoughts in the comments below.